We just saw Captain Fantastic, and let me tell you, it was fantastic. So, what did you guys think? Did you love it? What,
Go ahead.
Oh, I go first because I'm a lady.
Yeah.
I loved it. I don't know if I can rate it right now in my mind, but it was a really great film. It was beautifully shot, great actors. I loved all the kids. I think all the kids were like perfect on cue. It reminded me a little bit of Little Miss Sunshine in that way, like how the actors like all played off of each other and they all had their, even though they were like their own separate characters, they all like sort of just like were bouncing back like racquetball. They just, whatever someone else gave off, the other person, gave off something else in a way. And like you could tell, there's this whole thing about mental illness in the movie, which I really liked having a movie like depicting that, because often they depict that and then they're just like, well, whatever, they went to a hospital. But they really depict it in a way, because I thought the middle boy was showing signs of almost that what we expect mental illness sometimes comes out as, during puberty, and a lot of kids have that kind of thing. The way he was portrayed, he was very, very angry, and like you could feel it. His emotion was like emoting through the film of anger, whereas everybody else was just sort of sad. When they heard about their mother dying, they were all sort of sad. But he was really showing what we don't want to portray sometimes when someone dies. We don't want to show people that we're angry, and he was portraying that emotion.
And you like that?
That part, yeah. I thought it was really great. I was just talking about other stuff about how some of it I felt was a little bit almost cliche. I know it's funny that you guys didn't get the part about the kids being on the bus.
Whoa.
Okay, later on.
Yeah, we won't talk about no spoilers.
Okay.
Sorry. That's okay.
Well, they don't know. There is a bus for children.
There is a bus for children, definitely. No one will pick up on that anyway. That's good. All right. So, but anything else? It looked like it was shot beautifully.
Yeah, and I love the soundtrack. I loved how only in the end was there an actual real song, and it wasn't the original people singing it. It was the other people.
You said it was like a dream, right? Like
I felt like when I was watching it, I felt like I was in a dream. I mean, especially because of the music. It was very soothing. There wasn't anything really harsh that was like thrown at you. There wasn't like a bomb going off or anything like that. So you didn't feel like you were like in something. You felt like you were in something that was surreal, and the colors were also very surreal. It was a lot of like these natural things, because it was supposed to be a natural place. How he's raising his children. It was a really great film. So.
Cool. Do you want to go? You want me to go?
I'll go real quick. Out of 100, I gotta say a 92. Like everyone said, the performances were phenomenal. Viggo Mortensen, who I haven't seen in a while, knocked it out of the park. All the kids were fantastic. His wife's parents were fantastic. Even his wife's sister, Catherine Hahn, and Steve Zahn, her husband Steve Zahn, they were fantastic as well. Top-notch performances all around. I loved it. I loved the plot. I loved how you kind of didn't know who to root for, because as we were talking earlier, life isn't black and white. There isn't a good guy and a bad guy. There's people who make mistakes, and this is a movie about people who make mistakes, and how hopefully you learn from them, and it's up to the viewer to decide whether lessons were learned. There are some plot lines that went unresolved, some questions that left unanswered. But again, in life, we never get the answer all the time. That's what I liked about it. Yeah. So great movie. I recommend it. It's shot beautifully. It's the soundtrack is a winner. I want to try to look for it tonight. A lot of songs without lyrics, but that's what I loved about it. So that 92.
Yeah, so I thought it was fantastic too. I'll start with what I didn't like, because there's things about it that I didn't like. So, so you're writing a script for a movie, and what's the easiest thing to do? Let's send them on a road trip.
Yes.
Right?
Well, that's when I mentioned Little Miss Sunshine, the same thing.
Right. So there's always like this road trip, right? And then it usually writes itself. Look, okay, we have these odd characters who are going to interact with the world now. Right. That being said, I mean, look, It's a story.
They both had dead bodies because Grandpa died in Little Miss Sunshine,
Oh.
and then they had to carry. They stole him from the hospital.
Yeah.
And they had to take him back with them.
Little
so.
Miss Sunshine was fantastic as
Yeah.
well. So and then so I loved all the performances from the actors. I really feel like this movie was tailor-made for me. Like it was like written for me. The dialogue, what they were talking about, is like what I talk about in my life. Right? Like it's like taking it right out of my.
Do you have a serrated blade at home?
I do not actually. They're way more badass than me. Most people, all the people in this are. So, but what we were talking about is this movie's about living from an ideal and living from philosophy. And, you know, it's like the father is teaching these kids, and he's their hero in a lot of ways. And I related that to my own life and how, like, God, my dad's my hero too. And I love my father, and I want his approval, and I want him to be proud of me, and I have the drive to do that. You know, that was there for me. So I'm sitting there and I'm relating to this movie in that respect. And then the kids are saying these things that are just like what I want to hear a kid say. You know, and they're addressing the day's problems with children and how they are, but they take at it like a totally extreme opposite view of it.
Yeah.
But then they're careful not to paint it in broad strokes. So like you said, gray area. Okay, yeah, we're gonna live this life where we study and we train and we live off the grid and we're not on the internet all the time. And there's consequences to that. It's not great. I know it seems like the ideal will be great, but it is not great. And then you know, we can obviously see the problems in our society as it is. So I just so appreciated what they were talking about. So the movie for me was why it was so fantastic. And Vigo, I mean, the whole movie's right on his face, and he's just delivering and delivering and delivering. I mean, and they, you know, he shaves, you know, it's like there's like a progression to him, right? And it's, you know, it's ultimately about a balance. It's about finding your way in life and finding your way. And then the last thing I want to say is something we talked about in the theater as we were leaving, which is without the choice, right? So they're being raised in a particular with a set of ideals and a system of belief. Without having alternatives to that belief, it has no power. See, coming to those beliefs on your own gives it the vitality, gives it life. You know, there's no backbone to the idea without the experiencing of other ideas and the sharpening of the ideas versus other ideas that people have.
You need to be able to make the choice.
You have
said earlier.
And they had to make that choice by changing the position of where they were. They couldn't have made that choice while they were living in the community that they were living in. Once they came out of that, once they went on the road trip, that's when they were able to make their own choices.
You have to experience the alternative to choose what you love.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, and then look, there was a couple sappy moments for me, and you know, and very much if you take the perspective that what you're looking for is a story and not necessarily like literal, like not a literal story, even though it takes place very literally, but if you can sort of like say parts of this are fantastical, then if fantastical is even a word, then you can sort of go. But you could so for me,
I'm coming to my own conclusion that it's a real word.
Okay. You know, the life that they led in the woods was fantastical. It was like a fantasy.
Yeah.
It was ideal. No.
It was like a dream.
Exactly.
You know, the one interesting thing that I'm thinking about it now, you know, in the movie, they're saying that, you know, the funeral is going to be within a certain amount of days. It felt like I was watching something that took place over like a month.
Right.
Every shot was something different, something new. It felt like we saw like 100 sunsets and 100, you know, sunrises. So I think in some places, something that is fantastical, when I was talking about like a dreamscape, when you're in your dreams, you don't know how much time is passing.
Right.
And so in a way, like it started off feeling real, and then as it progressed, it got more unreal, and then it came back to normal again.
Right.
You know, with the ending, with the end result.
Yeah, and so what I'll give it I'm gonna give it a 90, and that's very high for me.
Really, yeah, it is.
But it's because I so love the concepts that they're talking about, and I so connected to my love for my family and my father, and how I want to raise kids, that when I have kids, how I want them to be raised, and how, and the last thing is there's just this frankness in the discussions that they have with the kids, where it's just like, no, like we are not going to go calmly. We are not going to do what society tells us to do when we don't see it as that. We see through that. We're free to express ourselves and to say, like, this is, there's such thing as sex, and I know you're 8 years old, and there's such thing as sex, right? There's violence, and there's suicide, and people do this, and there's sickness, and these concepts, and maybe they're right. Maybe they're right that little kids shouldn't have to hear those concepts, but maybe not.
You know, the way that Viggo was honest with his kids was such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Because we're all about protecting the children.
And you saw that when they had dinner.
Yeah.
And she was all like, no.
Kids are more capable of they're more capable of dealing with these emotions than we think they are.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We're gonna end it right there. But listen, I love you. Thanks for watching my video. Thank these two for being on the video.
We loved it. We want to do this again.
They will be doing it again.
Awesome.
And share my videos. If you want to come watch a movie with me, hit me up, and we'll be on a video.
All right.
Boop.